All right, everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Better Commute, Happier Staff, Enhancing the Employee Commute Experience. My name is Norm Eng. I'm with the SBA Massachusetts District Office here in Boston, Massachusetts. And today we're lucky to be working with Adam Arnold, who is the Program Management Lead with Urban Trans. Adam works with MassRides, the Massachusetts Travel Options Program, to encourage Massachusetts commuters to choose more sustainable travel options. Building on over a decade of experience in this field, Adam currently works with government agencies, property managers, and employers across the U.S. and Canada to develop and deliver commute option programs. Committed to building capacity and skills in this field, Adam frequently leads professional development workshops, including a popular series with businesses as they prepare for the 2015 Pan Am Games in Toronto. He's based in Toronto and dedicated year-round bike commuter, braving the winters on two wheels as a self-proclaimed Viking biker. If you haven't signed up for the SBA Massachusetts email alerts, sign up at sba.gov/MA. And we got some other great events coming up, but I'm going to hand it over to Adam now to start this presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Norman, and thanks, folks, for joining us today. It's certainly a pleasure to be here this morning. I am from Toronto, but I'm actually doing this presentation from Boston. It's a pleasure to be down in Massachusetts and connecting with you folks. What we wanted to talk to you today a little bit about is the impact that the commute and improving the commute can have on your staff, particularly for you as a small business. So MassRides has put together a really helpful guide to start looking at some of these issues and help you as a small business address some of those issues. And we wanted to give you an overview of that guide, point you in the direction of it, and get you thinking about some of these ideas to maybe help improve employee commutes and improve how your staff feel about their trip, and then hopefully how they feel about work. I'm just going to start scrolling through here. So really the goals of the session today, threefold. So we want you to understand how a commute options program can benefit your employees. We want you to learn a little bit how to identify and act on certain opportunities that can improve that employee commute, and give you some insights into programs, support that might be available to your workplace. So we'll talk about a lot of things today that you might think, well, these are some big ideas. I'm not really sure where I get started. So part of the aim of today is to introduce you to some of the support that's available, so you don't feel that you have to do these things on your own. And if you see value in it, know who to reach out to and connect with. So before we get started, this is, as I mentioned, our Commute Options Program Toolkit. So this is a toolkit that's available online, commute.com. You can go on there, and we'll give you the website address at the end of this presentation. That toolkit has lots of great information on how a commute option program can work for small, medium-sized employers, practical ideas, templates, different tools that you can use. So this presentation, this webinar is to introduce you to that. We certainly recommend that you go and take a look at that if these things are of interest to you. Lots more detail in there, lots more things you can find out. We're not going to go through every element of it. It would be too much to cover in an hour, and I think you may fall asleep, but we want to give you kind of a taster so that you're kind of interested in exploring it a little further. So to take a little step back, and Norman gave us a bit of an introduction, but just to give you some information about MassRides, which you may not be familiar with. So MassRides is a free program of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. It's really designed to help reduce traffic congestion and improve air quality and mobility. So it's about how people move around the state and reducing the congestion that we have. One second. Let me just close it. Reducing congestion and obviously then the subsequent impact on air quality. So MassRides primarily works with employers and commuters within the Commonwealth to promote the use of commute options. So it's really focusing on employers where the reason that most people are on the road in the morning and the evening is because they're traveling to work. So MassRides works with those audiences to look at what other options are available to encourage people to drive less and think about alternative options. There might be carpooling, might be cycling, transit, whatever those different options are. So each year, the efforts of MassRides help lessen traffic congestion by reducing more than 23 million miles driven, keep more than 10,000 tons of pollution out of the air we breathe. So these programs have a significant impact, and we want to make sure we can kind of open them up to some of our smaller employees so that they can contribute to that impact. So what do we mean by a commute options program? Here's my textbook definition: a collection of strategies designed to reduce roadway congestion and demand for single occupancy vehicle travel by redistributing travel demand to alternative travel modes, types, and routes. Easy for me to say. What do we really mean when we talk about a commute options program? What we're talking about is, again, decreasing the amount of traffic on the road, decreasing congestion, reducing the number of cars driving around, decreasing the amount of emissions that we create through all that driving. So very simply reducing those factors, and then looking at increasing different modes of transit. So increasing the number of people riding the bus, increasing the number of people carpooling, the number of people riding a bike, the number of people walking to work, giving people the option so they can choose those alternatives and make better choices to really act on those reductions that we're looking for. But why should you care? You're a small business, you have lots of things going on. Perhaps sustainability, being green is kind of interest to you, but it's really not a major factor within your business operation. Maybe you're not a tree hugger, maybe this is not something that you're concerned about. So I kind of want to make the case for you as to why you should think about these elements. And through the toolkit, you'll see outlined these 5 main areas. And you'll see, I think, at a quick glance, none of those says save the planet. None of those says environment. This is all about impact that it has on your organization and your operations. So really there's 5 key areas, and we'll go through these fairly quickly. First is tax benefits, corporate culture, impact on cost reductions for you, staff recruitment and retention, and then finally business continuity. So these are kind of some of the reasons that you might want to think about a commute options program. So very quickly we'll give an overview. I won't profess to be any kind of tax expert, but to, again, give you a heads up, this is something that's out there and you can look to the toolkit for more information. There is a commuter choice federal tax benefit available based on the Section 132 of the Federal Tax Code. It allows you as an employer to offer employees financial incentives for using alternative commute modes. So commuters pay for a qualifying transportation expense, transit passes, van pool fares and more, and then they get a tax benefit on that. There's a number of ways that they can access that, either with the employee paying, so the employee can use up to $225 of pre-tax income per month to pay for a transit or a van pool seat through their payroll deduction, and we'll talk a little bit about van pools if you're not quite sure what those are. So similar to a flexible savings plan. So there's no income tax paid on that benefit. Employer saves then through the reduced payroll taxes. So that's if the employee is paying. On the other side, if the employer chooses to pay, so an employer can give up to $255 a month for the cost of a transit or a van pool fare, and the employer then receives a tax deduction for the amount given, and also then saves over providing that same value in gross income. So again, there's a saving available to you there as a small business. Or there's a combination of the both. So the employer can pay a bit, the employer pays a bit, and there's pre-tax payroll deductions through that as well. So lots of opportunities to access that for your employees. Obviously, it's a great benefit for employees, but it impacts, again, for you specifically as a business owner. There's also within the state a Massachusetts commuter deduction. So that's something that's available to your employees through their individual tax return. So that can be a certain amount of a deduction for weekly or monthly transit passes, either for MBTA or your local transit agency, or for EasyPass. So again, there's lots of information on this. Certainly take a look through that toolkit to get some more details on that, and obviously find the relevant sections through the different tax information sources. But again, just something to be aware of, this is something that's available to you. So looking through those other circles of why this might be of interest to you. So corporate culture is a significant piece. So obviously, corporate culture, a good, friendly and productive corporate culture helps your business succeed. And a commute program can really help address some of those issues. There's certainly great synergy with corporate wellness programs. So when we talk about cycling and walking to work, that's a great fit if you're encouraging your staff to be more active and more healthy. It's certainly been shown to improve employee productivity and reduce stress. So if employees arriving at work and maybe they weren't stuck in traffic, or they weren't late because of being stuck in traffic, they didn't have that stress of driving. We've all been there when we're driving and we're kind of white-knuckling it through traffic congestion. People who are arriving more calm, they're more likely to be more productive, they're more likely to be on time. That's obviously a huge benefit to you. Reducing the late arrivals and absenteeism. Often we find folks in particular who are taking transit tend to be on a more reliable, regular schedule, because those types of modes tend to be more reliable in themselves. They mentioned the physical health benefits. So not only with walking and cycling increasing activity, people who take the bus or the train or the MBTA, they're likely to be walkers too. Unless you were very fortunate to live above exactly where your bus station is, chances are you walk to your bus stop or you walk to the end of your trip. So again, that's boosting that physical activity. It's also a great opportunity to showcase your business as a positive member of the society, of local community. A great way of showing that you've got some green credentials. So maybe you are not personally invested in the environmental message, but showcasing that that's the kind of organization you are, that you value environmental sustainability, that can, again, add value to you as a corporation, as an organization. So the cost reduction, having fewer people drive to your office, your workplace, can reduce the need for parking. So it can reduce the need for building new parking, expanding it, but even for maintaining that parking. Parking is an expensive cost. For some organizations, you don't charge your employees for that, but you are incurring some costs around that. So if you can have fewer people parking, it's going to cost you a little less money. If we have fewer cars on the road, it gives easier access and traffic flow for goods movement. So you're producing goods, you're getting them shipped around the state, around the country. If there's less traffic, it's much easier and quicker for you to move those things around. So it's in all of our interest to reduce that congestion on the road. And then finally, on a very specific level, and this is only really if it's applicable, participating in a MassRIDES program can help you meet Department of Environmental Protection rideshare regulation, program implementation, and reporting requirements. That is applicable. If that means anything to you, this is applicable. If it doesn't mean anything to you, you don't have to worry about it. But again, it's something that can help address some of those barriers in cost. Staff recruitment and retention, hugely valuable. Again, we mentioned commute options programs can help in productivity. They help result in higher morale, knowing that your workplace has access to different modes, different ways of getting to work, can make employees happier to work there. It's not a stress for them. Not having to worry about that commute is one less thing that they have to think about day to day, and makes your workplace more attractive to them. It can certainly help recruit some of that top talent. We know with the millennial workforce and new workforce entrants, commute options are really in high demand. It's a very important factor to allow staff to have different commute options. We know multiple situations where companies have had to struggle to hire folks. Talent has turned down jobs because the commute options package wasn't there. Millennials may not have access to a vehicle. They need those alternatives. So it certainly makes you more attractive to that top talent. So when we talk about alternative commute modes, I mean, we're really talking today primarily about carpooling and cycling and transit, but even things like telework, flexible working, they are really important to, again, new entrants to the workforce. Having that flexibility to work from home, that can be part of your commute options program too. So offering that makes you more attractive. Also giving that better access can give you access to lower income workers who maybe don't have access to vehicles. Again, if you've got a location that is not accessible by transit, for example, but you have a large workforce who don't have access to vehicles, how do people get there? How are you making sure that you can access that workforce as well? And then business continuity, a great way of making sure that you're prepared to deal with things that can come up. So that first picture there, this is a picture of the collapse of the I-85 in Atlanta, which you may have seen a few months ago. This is a program where all of a sudden a major highway collapsed and people can't get to work. So a commute options program can help support your operations when the unexpected occurs. So when that road closes down, when something you weren't expecting to happen happens, can your workplace still keep going? Can people work from home? Can they find different ways of getting to work if a road closes to make sure that operations can keep going? That might happen through natural disasters, through weather events. It might be temporary closures, special events. Maybe President Trump is coming to town. Maybe there's different shutdowns on transit that you need to allow for. How do we make sure that staff can move around as their external situations change? So that's kind of the why. Again, you take a look through the toolkit and see, and you can get some real good understandings of some of those other reasons to think about these programs. How do you go about building a program? Again, we know you are busy people. We certainly don't want to suggest this is a massive undertaking that should distract from what you're doing day to day. But it is valuable to build a program. Building a program that has some formality to it helps provide staff with those decent options. So as you'll see in the toolkit, we really like to outline it in three main areas: the thinking, the planning, and the acting. So I'm going to take you through those, the first stage being thinking about how you build that program. Two real key elements in that. One is the identification of what we call an employer transportation coordinator. That is someone who is really the liaison between a group like MassRides, who have all this information, can provide all this support, can give you great ideas on different programs, on transit information, on cycling, on carpooling. And then, but also that person has the ear of the staff. They're the person who can help get messages out, who can put a poster up, who can understand the staff to know what kind of programs are going to work best for them. And then a workplace assessment is understanding really a lot more about your workplace and what kind of programs are useful to you, what makes sense, what doesn't. So again, when we talk about the employee transportation coordinator, they're the person really who's going to be responsible for leading that program. It might be someone who's an office manager, it might be someone in human resources. It really depends on your organization and the size of it. But it's usually someone who has great connections with other departments, is interested in this subject potentially, but has an understanding why this might be useful. As I say, it could be an office manager, it could be someone in sustainability if you have that kind of team, it could be your facilities guy. It doesn't really matter as long as they have that connection and knowing that that is the best fit for your workplace. We often find that senior employees can be more successful because they have the ability to make decisions on these programs and say, this is something that we want to implement, but obviously we need to balance them having the time to do something like that with the ability to say that something like that some kind of programming can happen. So again, I think that the key message is the right person for your workplace. You probably know already, as I say this, who would be in your workplace the best person to do this kind of thing. When we talk about assessing needs, again, this doesn't need to be particularly heavy-handed. Some key things that you want to know about your workforce, though. Where are people living and how do they get to work? That's significant. If you know that most of your employees live within 5 kilometers, maybe it's worth talking about cycling as an option. However, if you know that most of your employees live 30 kilometers away and none of them are really close to a transit line, then maybe you need to think about a program like a carpooling program. We'll go into the details of what we mean by those programs in a second. But knowing where people live and how they currently get to work helps you understand their current situation. It's also useful to understand what kind of things you can provide to staff to encourage them to change their behavior. So what's interesting? What's going to make someone think about taking a carpool? Is it a parking space? Is it a financial incentive? Is it the ability to find someone to match with? All different things. So understanding that those motivations is important too. It's something that you can do through a survey, a very simple survey, and again, something that MassRides can help you with. If you're a much smaller organization, maybe there's 4 or 5 of you there, you might know this stuff already. You might be able to discuss it over lunch. But understanding that is going to help you build that program. Some other factors to consider too, though, are business travel. So where are people going through the week? Are people in and out of the office? Do they need their car for a particular reason? Are there ways of having people travel differently for work during the week? Can they travel by transit? Can they make pool trips? Those kind of things. And do you offer things like web conferencing or other technology? Doing this session today as a webinar helps us reach a lot more people, and it maybe helps, from your perspective, enables people to travel less. Maybe they don't need to go to every meeting off-site. They can do things more remotely. And then understanding a little bit about your site itself. Do you have any parking issues? Is that a major concern for you? Are you close to a transit line? Are you close to a bike route? And do you have something like a sustainability strategy? Something that says, we are committed to improving environmental sustainability. This is something that we could contribute to. So understanding all these elements can help you kind of figure out, okay, we know what we want to offer, we know the kind of people that we have, these are the kind of ideas that we should think about. And now really the exciting part is thinking about how you develop that plan. So you've got a good understanding of your workforce, you've got a good understanding of the needs of people. What are you actually going to do for them? What kind of things can you offer? So what I want to take you through is really some of the strategies that you can look at. And again, if you take a look through the toolkit that's available, there's a lot more detail in there about all these different elements, ideas for programming, examples and such, but this is really just to give you a little bit of an overview. So as I said at the start, when we talk about commute options, we're talking about these different ways of moving around outside of driving alone. One of the major ones is often carpooling. So carpooling, I think, familiar to most people, the idea of sharing a ride to work with a colleague, someone who lives near you and works near you, or even works in the same office. Sharing that ride, obviously the benefits there are significant. Reducing the amount of driving someone does, the amount of money they spend on gas. Takes a car off the road every time someone's sharing that ride. It also gives you access to things like high occupancy vehicle lanes, which may get you to work more quickly, avoiding some of that traffic. So it's certainly an easier thing for employees to get involved in. It's something that can be flexible. It doesn't have to be something that they commit to every day. Something that can be picked up. And again, within a small workplace, often this is very easy to do. You know who lives near you, and you know what, every couple of days we're gonna share a ride together. So from the employer perspective, it's really about how do you encourage people to find to ride with each other. So finding connections informally, or finding connections through something like New Ride. So New Ride is a website provided by MassRides that employees can go on and find a carpool match. So they can put their information in, say, I'm coming from this particular location, I'm traveling to this destination. Is there anyone in this area that I could connect with and find a match with? A great way to connect, especially for a smaller business where perhaps maybe there's not a huge pool of people within your organization, but you're in an area where there are a lot of other small businesses. So maybe you find someone who works at the business next door or down the road, something like that. So again, that's something that employees can certainly take a look at. Think about, from your perspective, providing things like reserved parking for carpoolers. So if your parking lot is full, people are always fighting over that one space that's near the front door, especially in the winter. Can you provide a reserved parking space for someone who's carpooling? It's a great benefit for them, a tangible benefit that might encourage them to say, you know what, this is worth my time sharing a ride with someone because I get this great space at the front. Taking the next step, think about how can you financially incent people to carpool. So maybe if you charge for parking, or the lot that you use charges for parking, can we give them a discount if they carpool? Can we give them some kind of daily allowance to say, if you carpool, we're going to give you $3 a day for doing it. This is certainly something we've seen some workplaces do, and it's a really great motivator for an individual to say, you know what, I'm going to get a little bit of cash in my pocket if I choose to carpool. So again, some broad ideas around carpooling, and a lot more sort of detailed within that toolkit. When we talk about transit, obviously it depends on your location. Are you close to transit? But encouraging employees to take the train or bus to work can be really effective. It's a great way of going to work if it's convenient for you. It's a great amount of time. If you're not driving, you're sat on the bus, it gives you a chance to read, to work, check Facebook, whatever it is you want to do. Certainly something that we definitely like to encourage. How do you get employees to do that? In addition to providing information, so letting people know that there is a bus stop outside work and this is where the bus goes to, that can be certainly a significant piece. Think about offering a discount transit pass. So lots of the local transit agencies have transit passes, discount programs that are available to employees that you can provide to give them a break on that cost. Think about also that information piece is really key. So a lot of people, one of the big barriers to transit is not necessarily that they don't have a bus route that serves them, but they just don't know where it goes. They see that same bus stop outside their office every day. They might not have any idea that it takes them pretty close to home. So using something like a trip planning tool through Google Transit, very easy to use in the same way that you might get driving directions, plug in your directions of where you want to go, click on the little bus icon on the Google map, and find out exactly how long it's going to take you to get home. You might find out, it's only going to take, it might take me 10 minutes longer, but it's a really easy route and I get to read my book on the way home. So giving that information can help people sort of see that this might be a realistic option for them. Cycling, again, something that we love to promote, obviously great for keeping healthy, great for saving money. We recognise it's certainly not feasible for everybody, either because you live too far from work, maybe you don't want to bike in the winter, not everyone's as crazy as me, which I totally understand. But think about how can it be an option for people some of the time? What kinds of opportunities are out there? And again, there's different ways of thinking about it. Some of it is around information, letting people know that it's convenient to bike, that it might only take them 20 minutes, and again, something like Google can help you map that kind of route. Think about things like bike share programs as well. So bike share is, you may have seen it in Boston, we have the Hubway program. Bike share programs are really the opportunity to borrow a bike for a set period of time. One of the nice things about bike share, it might not be suitable for for getting to and from work, but it might be something that someone could use, for example, during a lunch hour to run an errand or go on a business site visit or a trip to a client, something like that, which means that they didn't need their car that day. So maybe they could take the bus in because during the day they don't need access to their own vehicle. There are things like bicycle user groups, so we often see this in smaller firms where the folks who do cycle, there's a collective of them, they're all really keen, they're a network, they all feed off each other, they share bike routes. That can be great for new cyclists too, because one of the big barriers, as I said, is I don't know, so maybe I don't feel safe, I don't know my way, I don't know which route to take. So connecting with people who already do ride their bikes is a great way to build confidence for individuals. On the employer side too, thinking about the infrastructure you allow. So bike storage is really important. Where do I lock my bike? We know some people spend a lot of money on some very fancy bikes. If you've spent that $2,000 on this beautiful road bike, right? Where do you want to store that? So making sure there's somewhere secure. It might be a rack outside. It might be internal. It might be as part of your parking structure. So thinking about where they can safely store is really important. Additionally, shower and locker facilities. So, while we talk about shower, maybe not riding in the bad weather, also riding, weather like we have this week, where it's really hot, a little steamy. People might be reluctant to ride because they feel, they're going to get to work in a state that they don't want to be at work. So giving someone the opportunity to shower, have access to a locker facilities where they can keep their belongings secure is important. Repair stations can also be part of that. So repair stations, and you may have seen these around, but they're beginning to pop up more and more frequently. So repair stations are really sort of like a glorified bike pump, but it has tools attached to it. It's secure, so an employee can come, they can put some air in their tires, maybe they can tighten up their brakes, whatever it is, and that's available to them on site as well. And finally, information and training, letting people know about how they can move around, and giving them some information on safe cycling and bike routes, that kind of thing. Walking, kind of taking a step of becoming more and more sustainable as we move down this ladder. Walking is a great option, obviously. If you're close enough to walk to work, it's fantastic. It's great for you as an employee. I think it encourages more walkable communities. Having people out on the street is a great thing to see. Obviously, people who are walking often are out walking and they're spending money in the community too. So if people are walking to work, that's a great option. Again, it might not work because folks might not live within that walking distance. We know that's not an option for a lot of people. But I think encouraging that, letting people know that they can do that, maybe having a more relaxed dress code, so if someone does want to walk to work, they don't feel they have to do it in really uncomfortable dress shoes, for example, that they can make that walk comfortably. That's something to emphasize. Things like walking workshops, walking meetings. So again, the idea that maybe someone's not going to walk to work, but they might be interested in walking at lunchtime. They might be interested in having a walking club. They might be interested in getting out and having a meeting while they're walking. What we tend to find that helps with is getting people educated about distances of walking and how enjoyable walking can be. So maybe you're never going to walk to work because you live 30 kilometers away. But maybe when you get used to walking at work, you're more inclined when you're at home in your neighborhood to take a walk. You're more inclined to walk to the grocery store because actually, 20 minutes isn't that difficult to try and deal with. And then finally, in terms of options, thinking about flexible work. So this really encompasses all these elements of working from home, having flexible work hours, certainly being shown to increase productivity, improve job satisfaction, having that flexibility to say, one day a week I need to work from home. It gives me the freedom to do that. That's something that's really valued by a lot of employees. As I said, a lot of millennials enjoy that. And it's something that I think we're becoming more and more used to. I think a lot of us, especially within the small business world, we're probably already doing this and we don't realize. Every time, we check our phones and it's 7 o'clock at night and we're sending an email, that's working from home, that's flexible working. So that infrastructure is there and we're already doing it. But giving employees the opportunity to do it formally and have that option, and again, keep them off the road is a great option. How do you do that? It can be complex. You may have existing policies that you might want to expand or promote. If you don't have a policy, it's something that you would certainly want to work with HR or a human resources consultant to understand what kind of policy is going to work for your organization. What kind of staff are eligible for this? Who's it going to work for? Is it something that is suitable for you? You might want to pilot that program for a trial period. You don't necessarily want to say, all of a sudden, everyone can work from home all the time. Think about, maybe 1 or 2 days a week for a set number of weeks, maybe a couple of staff that can do it, so you can understand what works for you. A different element of a flexible work is then this idea of a compressed work week or a flexible schedule. So maybe someone is in the office every day, but they're working longer hours, so that maybe they take a Friday off, or their schedule is such that they're starting early and finishing early. That flexibility, it may not necessarily remove vehicles from the road, but what it does is it might shift some of those travel times. So in terms of congestion, if we have more people traveling earlier, leaving and starting work earlier, that starts to spread that load of congestion and can certainly contribute to one of those key goals. Other strategies that don't really fall into those particular modes, something you might want to think about, something called an emergency ride home program. So that's something that can be offered in partnership with MassRides. Emergency ride home is really an insurance program for people who choose these modes. So often we hear from people, I would carpool, I would take the bus, but what happens if I get stuck at work? What happens if the school calls and I need to go pick up my kid and I didn't drive today and I'm stuck? So the emergency ride home program is there to offer you a cab ride home in the event of that emergency. That cab ride is then reimbursed through the MassRides program. Again, lots more details within the toolkit on the mechanics of that, but it's a great way to say to employees, you can choose, you can try doing this, give it a try. We've kind of got your back in case that inevitable happens. Other things to think about, incentives that really can apply to any of those different modes. Thinking about, if you choose those particular commute mode, maybe you get an additional vacation day. Maybe we have a casual dress day. Maybe you get monetary rewards. So it might be $3 a day for carpooling, or if you carpool for a set period of time, maybe we'll give you a gas card to pay for your carpool gas for a short amount of time. It doesn't have to be huge, just something that is a reward to folks. And that it could be free lunches. We've done things with workplaces who have a lot of cyclists. We give them a breakfast every Friday or something like that. Everyone bikes in, cyclists are super hungry. They get breakfast that morning because they've done their part. Prize draws, I think, can be important, getting people excited about choosing this. And public recognition. And that might be recognition within the company to say, this person's doing a great thing. They're contributing to their environmental footprint. We want to recognize them, or it could be broader than that. We can say this is something that reflects on us as a company. We have great staff who are doing this kind of work. The New Ride program that I talked about, the Carpool Ride Matching program, also has a trip tracking element in there. So if you track trips through New Ride, so if you say, I'm carpooling, you can also go on there, you create an account, you say, I carpooled twice this week, you can earn incentives through that program. So they can be, discounts to local stores, gift cards, those kind of things. So kind of like any other points program, you can build those points up and get some of those incentives. We often tie those into things like commuter challenges, so where we say to people, we're not going to ask you to take up carpooling for the rest of your career. We're going to have a week and we want you to try it twice. Giving them a challenge. Who's going to carpool the furthest? Who's going to take this initiative on? That can be something, again, that can incent people. And again, the tax benefits, I think, is a great incentive, too, to keep referencing for staff. Okay, so how do we choose? We've given you all these options, lots of information. You go back to that toolkit, there's all kinds of information in there. How on earth do you choose? So we have created this very handy matrix, which I will say is not quite as exciting as the original matrix, but it will help you try and understand some of the best options and opportunities that work for you. I'll show you an example of this. Again, I'll recommend you look at the toolkit so you can see it in more detail. But it's really taking all those strategies I've just talked about, rating them by effectiveness at different types of workplace. Are you a large or small, urban, rural, suburban? What's the best fit for you? We know that not everything works for everyone. You've got to think about which works for you. So this is just a little screenshot of what that toolkit looks like. Certainly, don't attempt to read it, but take a look in the toolkit and you can kind of see in that idea, okay, here's a bunch of strategies. What kind of business am I? What fits best with me? Is it worth my time putting money into reserving carpool spaces if I'm a small rural business? Maybe not. Maybe I need to think about something else. So that's a great tool that you can make use of to kind of evaluate some of those different options. As you do that, it enables you then to create an action plan. So again, we've got a great template within that toolkit that you can use. Very basic. We're not suggesting you need to formalize this process, but I think it helps you think through what options are best, what's going to work best for your workplace. So the template that we've created allows you to create those action items, assign responsibility, which is always important, who's going to do it, the timelines, when is it going to be done by, any resources that you might want to put to it. This doesn't have to be a resource-intensive program, but you might want to throw in a couple of $100 to offer some certain prizes or incentives, that kind of thing. The other element we need to do is identify those opportunities to engage employees in the messaging. So how are we going to tell people about this? Is it through orientation? So often we find a great way of getting people, new staff who come on, let's give them information on how they're going to get here. We've given you all this information on your benefits, on your first day, what you're going to do, how you report, how you do health and safety. Let's include transportation and the commute in that element too, so they know the best ways of getting here. If you have company newsletters, if you do a company barbecue, that's again something that you can use to go straight to those commuters and engage with them. Marketing is really a cornerstone of these programs, and again something that MassRides can help with, because it's really about making sure that people can be aware of the programs that are taking place, making sure that they can act on them, and then really importantly making sure that they can maintain them. So I want to take you quickly through this part of the toolkit, and again there's lots more information on that toolkit you can see, but to give you an overview of these kind of three main areas. So the first one is awareness. Fairly obvious, but how do we make sure staff know about the programs? It can be very traditional. It can be posters, it can be emails, it can be a lunchtime event, something that lets people know that this is the program that we're investing in, that we think is useful for our staff, that we want them to get involved in. That toolkit has some great templates and ideas. Feel free to use them as you need to. Use the wording, use the pictures, just to get a sense of this is a great way of putting a poster up and saying we're going to encourage people to carpool, for example. So you don't have to start from scratch. There's a lot of those materials are there for you to use and to publicize. When we talk about action, get staff to give it a try. So don't just talk to them about it. Give them an opportunity, a challenge week to try something. Do things like engagement events. This is a shot of two of our very keen commuters, our MassRides team, Bugs and Daffy. This is from Six Flags. But great engagement events to get people thinking about, this is something that I could take part in. I'm going to try carpooling for this particular day. Actually, you know what? This is kind of interesting. Maybe I'll give this a go more frequently. And then on the maintenance side of things, how do we get people to continue doing this behavior? This is often the most difficult part. And this is where things like incentives come in, things like the Emergency Ride Home program. Letting people know, if you keep doing this work, keep doing these behaviors, you can keep getting rewarded. See, for example, here, if you commute by carpool, you could earn points and you can get a discount on your wine. I can't think of much better an incentive than that. And certainly things to support the behavior. So the Emergency Ride Home that says, if you do this, we've got your back if something goes awry. And then finally, really measurement is important. Again, not something for you as a small business to get overly bogged down in. This isn't really the goal of the program. But measuring and seeing what kind of impact these programs can have can help you build that internal support, can help you say, this is worth our time doing. We should do more of this. Staff really value it. That might be something like a before and after travel survey. So maybe you've done a survey to find out a little bit about your employees. You go back a year later and say, do we have any impact? Do we have more people riding their bike or carpooling? For smaller organizations, it might be a focus group. And that might be something as informal as sitting around over lunch and seeing, well, actually, I've noticed that we have way more people taking the bus now because of some of the programs that we offer. Bigger picture, looking at things like absenteeism, productivity, looking at have those rates changed over the course of these programs. A little more difficult to measure, but something that could be related to the improvements in the commute options. And then on a really easy level, look at your parking lot. Are there fewer people, are there fewer cars in that lot? That should tell you something about the effectiveness of these programs, and is worth looking into. I will say MassRides is here to help. I keep stressing this. The toolkit is there as a resource for you. But MassRides is there to introduce these programs to you, to showcase some of these examples, to share this best practice, to help understand what's best for your workplace. All these kind of things that I've talked about already, ride matching, van pool formation, tax benefits, anything on this whole list that might make you think, I don't really understand what that is, I'm interested in employee origin mapping, but how on earth do I do that? Work with MassRides are there as a service that's available to the business community to access some of these services and support these programs. So, just before I wrap up, just a reminder why we want you to do it. These are the 5 things: the tax benefits, corporate culture, cost reduction, staff recruitment and retention, business continuity. Definitely worth your time doing it. How do we want you to do it? Think, plan, and act. So those 4 stages, 4 steps that can really help build that plan, identify what's useful to you, and put it into play. Here's the URL for the toolkit. Again, though, if you go onto commute.com, you can easily find it on there as well. You can click, you can download that PDF. Lots of great information in there that's going to help you look at these different programs. Maybe you have questions. Maybe you're kind of like, well, maybe I'll give it a thought. Maybe I need to read a little bit more. This is the place to do that. And obviously through there, contact details on how to connect with us if you have further questions. So that's everything I wanted to share with you today. Here's our contact details. You can connect with us. If you have questions now, certainly we're more than happy to answer, but otherwise you can connect with us directly offline. But thank you very much for your time.
All participants are now in interactive talk mode.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Adam, for sharing that information with us and our subscribers. Just a quick question. Is there anybody over at MassRides that can work with someone, like handhold them through this process, or should they just follow along with the toolkit?
I can certainly, I think there might be someone from MassRides on the call that can answer too, but I would say, have a team of outreach coordinators, outreach specialists, and their job is to work directly with those workplaces.
Wonderful.
Generally, we tend to
so
work
it is
with
possible.
Yeah, it's possible. We tend to work generally with larger employers because of the scale, but I think, if there are employers that are interested in engaging and have got some great ideas, MassRides, I think, will be more than happy to connect.
That's great. Did Rebecca want to add anything before we close this out?
No, I think what Adam just answered to was perfect. We have outreach coordinators all over the state, so we're more than happy to come out to your work sites and to meet with you, introduce ourselves to you, help you identify whatever commuter solutions or commuter issues you have and create some solutions for you.
And we just call the 888-4COMMUTE number to reach you?
Yep. You can do that. You can also go on to the www.commute.com to get information. And then we also have, if you go to our Meet Our Staff page, you can see the outreach coordinators who are in your territory, and you can also email them directly. Either one will do.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you to Urban Trans and Adam Arnold for presenting this information to our subscribers. Again, check out our events coming up, sba.gov/MA. We have Friday, June 23rd, there's a Managing Export Operations and Compliance workshop. There's also on Tuesday, June 27th, there's a Facebook Business Builder workshop over at Harvard iLab. Check it out. If you need to reach me, it's norman.eng@sba.gov. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.